Hey y'all, this is Jason with Kindred Heritage, and this week I'm making a leather desk mat. Let's get into it. I recently had a client reach out asking if I could make them a desk mat. I've never made a desk mat before, so we worked together to outline the details of the design, size, leather, and stitching. We've landed on this beautiful rustic pull-up leather for the top, a super soft green suede bottom, a matching green stitch line, and an internal backer board to make it thicker and more resilient for riding on. I began by identifying what parts of this leather would make for a good desk mat, something with minimal marks and ideally no brands. My client wanted the overall dimensions to be 34 inches by 16 inches. So I started by cutting the leather to these dimensions, beginning with a straight cut along one long edge. With a straight line cut, I could easily measure 16 inches away and cut a parallel line. Then it's as simple as cutting the edges to 34 inches. This leather is what's called chrome tanned. Simply put, this means it's a faster, easier method of preparing a rawhide into leather goods than some of the traditional methods. While chrome tanned leathers are not as durable as traditional vegetable tanned leathers, they tend to be much softer. One downside to this softness is that they can be scratched easily. Some chrome tanned leathers have what's referred to as pull up. This means that during the tanning process, the oils penetrate deeply into the hide, which means that some of the small marks or scrapes can be buffed out with heat, bringing those oils back to the surface. With the leather cut, it's time to cut the internal board. To give space for the stitch line, I needed to chop an additional half an inch from each of the overall dimensions. I used my track saw to cut this to size because handling an 8-foot long sheet of anything on my table saw is not as safe as I would like. Plus, it's not as accurate. I used a small round tool to mark a line on each corner, and then used my disc sander to slowly grind down to that line. Finally finishing the woodwork of this project by hand sanding a rounded edge to all of the top sides of the backer board. This makes sure that the leather will fold around the surface smoothly. This project used a lot of glue, so if you decide to try this for yourself, make sure you do this part in a well-ventilated area. I began by adding glue to all of the joining surfaces and allowing them to air dry for approximately 15 minutes or until they were sticky to the touch. Since suede can stretch during the cutting process, it's more accurate to cut the leather to size first and then glue it to a larger piece of suede and trim it to fit. Now that the pieces are glued together, I can cut off all of the excess suede and trim the corners to match the round in the backer board. Punching the stitching holes in this project is fairly straightforward because it's mostly a straight line saddle stitch. Just mark a line away from the edge and punch the holes. This project had a lot of stitching, something like 500 stitch holes, so this part took a while. The final finishing steps are to add a quick round over to all of the edges and burnish. Burnishing the 100 or so inches by hand would have taken a while, so I made this simple jig for my bench grinder by drilling a hole in some wood and using a lathe tool to cut it right on the grinder. This removes any oscillation the grinder may have, making sure that it's perfectly round. This made the process much faster, but I still went back over all of the edges by hand. And here's the final product. I really like how this one came out. I think I may be making one for myself in the near future. Let me know what you think below. If you're interested in having a custom project made for your needs, check out my website at kindredheritage.myshopify.com. It may just be featured here on YouTube. Anyways, thanks for watching, and until next time, get out in the shop and try something new.